Northern Arabian Sea, 118 kilometers southeast of Bandar Abbas. 8:40 in the evening. 84 U.S. Army soldiers from 3rd Battalion, 43rd Air Defense Artillery Regiment were spread across 2 escort decks and 1 command ship, tracking a missile wave moving west. On Iran's coast, 612 Iranian forces from IRGC naval missile units protected 180 launch-ready missiles, 12 radar vehicles, and 4 fire control bunkers that could hit the U.S. fleet. The U.S. force had 90 seconds to stop the first wave or lose ships, men, and control of the strait. The target area mattered because it sat beside the narrow water that tanker traffic used every day. Iran had built layered defenses there for years. Coastal radar watched the sea out to 240 kilometers. Missile launchers sat inside hardened sheds. Fast boats waited in hidden inlets. Zu-23-2 guns covered the roads. In DSHK teams watched the cliffs. Iranian forces believed the mix of range, rock, and speed made the position untouchable. The U.S. fleet knew the danger before the first launch. A command ship, 2 destroyers, 1 cruiser, 1 supply ship, and 1 amphibious transport were moving south after dark. The fleet carried fuel, missiles, helicopters, and a temporary U.S. Army Air Defense Detachment brought in for the transit. If the convoy broke here, the shipping lane would close and every ship behind it would turn back. The plan was simple and tight. Alpha Element held the cruiser's upper deck and controlled SM-6, SM-2, and Phalanx CIWS coverage for the outer layer. Bravo Element split between the 2 destroyers and ran IM-116 AM launchers, Mk-19 grenade launchers, and M2 Browning guns against anything that broke through. Charlie Element, 28 U.S. Army Rangers armed with M4A1SO PMOD-2 carbines, Mk-18C QBR carbines, M249 SAW light machine guns, and C4 waited inside 4 helicopters for a strike on the main fire control bunker. Delta Element, 16 U.S. Army Rangers with 2 Carl Gustaf M3 recoilless rifles, 1 Javelin missile team, and 6 thermite charges, prepared to land on the coast road, cut the launcher line, and hold the exit route. At 8:43, the assault began. From the coast, 36 Iranian missiles rose first. Then 28 more followed from 4 separate points. 2 radar trucks shifted south. Fast boats pushed from 3 coves. The sea screen lit at once. Alpha tracked the highest arcs. Bravo locked the low runners. Charlie helicopters lifted from the amphibious transport and turned north under radio silence. Delta followed 40 seconds later and stayed low over the water. Iranian forces expected panic on the ships. They got order instead. The cruiser fired 6 SM-6 missiles in the first 12 seconds. A destroyer launched 8 SM-2 missiles behind them. Phalanx CIWS mounts began firing as broken targets dropped closer. 1 Iranian missile split in midair. Another lost guidance and fell into the sea. A third kept coming. Bravo hit it with ram at 4.8 kilometers. Burning parts skipped across the water and sank. At 8:45, the first positions were taken. Charlie helicopters crossed the shoreline and flared behind a ridge 3 kilometers west of the main bunker. The Rangers jumped out and moved fast. 2 Iranian sentries with AK-74 rifles turned toward the rotor wash. A suppressed Mk-18C QBR dropped the first. A burst from an M4A1S OPMOD-2 dropped the second. Charlie cut through a wire gate, placed C4 on a steel service door and blew it inward. Inside the lower hall, 11 Iranian forces fired from sandbags. Charlie answered with M249 SAW fire, 40 rounds from a stairwell, and 2 grenades. The hall was clear in 22 seconds. Delta landed 1.6 kilometers east of the launcher line and ran for the road. A PKM machine gun opened from a tower. A Carl Gustaf M3 round hit the tower base, and dropped the gunner with the whole platform. Delta crossed the ditch, set 2 thermite charges on a fuel truck, and burned the road black. When 3 Iranian pickups raced from the south, the Javelin team fired once. The lead truck exploded. The next 2 swerved into the rocks. Delta finished the stop with M4A1 fire. By 8:47, the fight spread in 4 directions. At sea, Alpha faced the second missile block. 24 Iranian missiles came in lower and faster, using the coast as cover. The cruiser switched tracks every 3 seconds. SM-2 missiles reached 9 targets. Phalanx CIWS cut apart 4 more. 1 missile broke through and hit the supply ship near the stern. Fire rolled across the deck. Bravo crews swung M24OB machine guns toward fast boats now closing from port side. The first boat took 22 rounds and flipped. The second kept moving until an MK-19 grenade landed at the bow and split it open. Inside the bunker, Charlie found the control room sealed. A breacher pressed a shaped charge onto the locking bar and fired it. The blast door swung inward. 4 Iranian operators tried to pull hard drives from the consoles. Charlie shot 2, wounded 1, and pinned the last man under a table. 3 Rangers ripped cables free, another dumped thermite into the main server rack. Screens went dark. When the missile picture feeding the coast battery died with them, Iranian forces on the upper level still had radios. 15 men rushed down with AK-74 rifles and 1 RPG-7. Charlie met them at the stair bend. A Ranger fired 9 rounds from an MK-18 CQBR into the first 2 men. An M249 SAW stitched the wall behind them. The RPG gunner fired short. The rocket hit concrete and filled the stairwell with dust. Charlie threw 2 flash grenades up the steps, climbed through the smoke, and cleared the level room by room. At 8:49, Iran tried to recover. A reserve platoon of 64 Iranian forces moved from the coast barracks toward Delta's roadblock in 8 trucks. 2 ZU-23-2 guns on trailers came behind them. Delta let the column close to 180 meters. Then the Rangers fired together. The Javelin hit the lead gun trailer. A Carl Gustav M3 hit the 3rd truck. The M4A1 and MK-18 fire cut down dismounted troops along the ditch. Iranian forces tried to flank right through a dry channel. Delta shifted 6 men, put an M249 SAW on the bend, and stopped the move in less than 30 seconds. Farther offshore, 9 fast boats broke into pairs and raced at the destroyers. Bravo answered with M2 Browning fire first, then MK-19 grenades walked across the waterline. 1 boat burned and drifted. 2 turned away. 6 kept coming. A destroyer used Phalanx CIWS at 1.3 kilometers and tore through the lead pair. The last 4 split wide. 1 reached rocket range and fired 2 unguided rounds. Both missed. Ram and .50 caliber fire ended the attack before any boat touched a hull. Charlie pushed to the roof because the bunker still held a backup dish. Iranian forces had placed a PKM machine gun behind a low wall there. The first burst hit a Ranger in the shoulder and another in the helmet. Charlie dropped flat. A breacher crawled left with det cord, looped it around a vent pipe, and popped it under the gun shield. The blast kicked the PKM off the roof. Charlie rose, crossed 12 meters, and took the dish with 3 thermite charges. The antenna folded, burned, and fell over the slope. At 8:51, the battle turned. Without the main radar picture, Iranian launches lost timing. 12 missiles came off rails from 3 sites, but they climbed without a clean track and spread apart. Alpha destroyed 7 with SM-6 and 3 with SM-2. Bravo killed 2 more with RAM. None reached the ships. Onshore, Delta saw launcher crews begin to move their vehicles inland. That could not happen. The Rangers called the coordinates. 38 seconds later, under 2 helicopters, fired 4 AGM-114 Hellfire missiles. The first pair hit 2 launcher trucks nose to nose. The second pair smashed a reload vehicle and a radar van. Iranian forces still had one hard point left. It sat inside a concrete shed at the north end of the battery and held 18 missiles ready on rails. Charlie left 10 Rangers in the bunker and moved the other 18 toward the shed. Fire came from slit windows. Charlie answered with 2 M320 grenades and 1 Carl Gustaf M3 round taken from a support team outside. The front wall cracked. Iranian forces tried to pull the steel shutter closed. A shaped charge blew the guide track apart. Charlie went through the gap and fought at 6 meters. Short bursts, fast movement, no pause. The shed was under control in 3 minutes. At 8:53, Iranian forces made their last full push. Our 92 men from a coastal guard battalion came from the east with 11 pickups, 2 armored cars, and 1 DHK truck. They aimed at the gap between Charlie and Delta. If they broke through there, the coast road would open and the launcher crews could escape. Delta shifted 8 Rangers north. Charlie sent 6 south from the bunker. The line closed just before contact. The DSHK truck fired first. Delta answered with the last Carl Gustaf M3 round and blew off the rear bed. The armored cars kept moving. A Ranger put an AT-4 into the first windshield at 70 meters. The second vehicle turned sideways and stopped. Iranian forces jumped out and ran for the culvert. Charlie met them there with Mk-18C QBR fire and 1 M249 SAW on full burst. Bodies blocked the mouth of the drain. The survivors fell back to the road shoulder. At sea, and Alpha and Bravo saw one more threat. 4 cruise missiles came in from the north, launched from mobile rails that had survived the first strikes. The angle was bad, and the ships had less than 70 seconds. Alpha fired 2 SM-6 missiles. Bravo fired 2 RAM missiles. One target broke apart at 11 kilometers, another turned and crashed into the water. The last 2 stayed low. Phalanx CIWS on the forward destroyer fired 420 rounds in 9 seconds and shredded one at 900 meters. The final missile clipped the cruiser's mast and exploded past the stern. The blast wounded 4 U.S. Army soldiers on the upper deck, but the ship stayed in the fight. By 8:55, the objective was seized. Charlie held the main bunker, the backup dish, and the north shed. Delta held the coast road and the fuel point. Iranian forces inside the battery were trapped. 1 or 12 men tried to run through the rear trench. A Ranger team cut them down with M4A1 fire. 4 more locked themselves in a maintenance room. Charlie placed C4 on the hinges, opened the door, and captured all 4 alive. Delta found 18 intact missiles, 3 guidance crates, 6 encrypted radios, and 2 paper fire plans inside the north shed. Thermite burned the radios. The fire plans and drives went into assault bags. At 8:57, U.S. aircraft arrived over the coast. The Rangers marked the outer berm with infrared strobes and pulled back 140 meters. 2 GBU-31 JDAM bombs struck the southern launcher yard. The first destroyed 6 missile rails, 2 reload trucks, and 1 command trailer. The second collapsed the concrete cover over the reserve magazines. Secondary blasts ran for 19 seconds. Iranian forces still alive near the yard dropped weapons and raised hands. Delta moved in pairs, zip-tied 27 prisoners, and pushed them into the service trench. At 9 o'clock, Bravo reported the sea lanes clear within 14 kilometers. Damage teams on the supply ship cut open a jammed hatch, pulled 5 sailors from smoke, and sealed 2 ruptured fuel lines. Alpha shifted Phalanx mount aft and kept watch for drones that never came. On shore, Charlie counted 31 intact guidance chips, 9 coded tablets, and 4 launch keys stacked inside a steel locker. 1 hour after the assault began, the firing had almost stopped. Small pockets remained near the coast barracks and the east checkpoint. Bravo helicopters made 1 last pass and fired 6 Hellfires into the barracks motor pool. Charlie cleared the checkpoint with 2 teams and a linear charge on the gate. Inside were 14 Iranian forces, 1 PKM machine gun, 22 AK-74 rifles, and 3 RPG-7 launchers. 8 men died in the first burst. 6 surrendered against the rear wall. At 9:12, extraction started. Charlie loaded hard drives, paper maps, 2 guidance modules, and 11 wounded men onto the first helicopters. Delta stayed behind for 14 more minutes to cover the lift zone. Iranian reinforcements from Bandar Abbas were still 37 kilometers away when the last aircraft came in. The Rangers fired smoke, pulled the prisoners to the edge of the pad, and boarded in reverse order. 2 helicopters lifted first with casualties and captured gear. The next 2 took the final assault teams and the last 13 prisoners. As they left, naval guns from offshore hit the road junction behind them and sealed the route with 18 rounds. By 9:26, every U.S. Army soldier was off the coast and back over water. The fleet turned south at 24 knots, while damage crews fought the fire on the supply ship. It took 41 minutes to contain it. The convoy never stopped moving. Iranian reinforcements reached the battery at 9:41 and found burning launchers, dead crews, broken radar, and empty bunkers. The missile field they were sent to save was already gone. The final count was hard and exact. The U.S. Army lost 3 killed and 11 wounded. The fleet suffered 7 additional Navy wounded and damage to 1 supply ship and 1 cruiser mast. Iranian forces lost 174 killed, 138 wounded, and 74 captured. U.S. forces destroyed 24 missile launchers, 18 ready missiles, 4 radar vehicles, 3 command trailers, 2 Zu-23-2 guns, 1 DSHK truck, 19 fast boats, 22 transport vehicles, 2 armored cars, 1 fuel point, 1 coast bunker, and 1 reserve magazine area. The direct equipment and facility loss reached $312 million. Iran believed that 180 missiles, hardened bunkers, mobile launchers, and a tight coast defense would break the fleet in one night. What actually happened was the opposite. In 46 minutes, U.S. Army Rangers and the ships around them ripped out the launch network, held the road, and kept the convoy moving. Iranian forces had range, numbers, bunkers, and surprise. What they did not have was 84 U.S. Army soldiers willing to cross sea and fire to shut the whole system down.